Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be taking another look at Power Query, and in this video we'll take a look at why we need a calendar table and how to set one up the easy way. Well, the first thing is, why do we need one? Well, we don't. We could actually just use calendar items added as calculated columns into a set of data. Why don't we do that? Well, because it's incredibly inefficient. So firstly, let's look at what is the calendar table that we're talking about. So the calendar table is a set of extra columns which apply to your fact data to give you more information. Now, it might be that you want to see what day of the week when you only have a date, or perhaps what financial year or what accounting period does that date fall into. Now, all of these are very useful for the hierarchy or granularity when you're doing the analysis. So your summary, you want to summarize by accounting period. Unless you actually have that accounting period in your data, it's very difficult to do so. Now, why do we need it? Well, we need it for these two reasons. One is completeness and the other is efficiency. So let's look at those two in turn. Here we have a very small set of data, and this is the field that I want the extra information about. So I want to know what day of the week it is, what AP, and so on. So what I do is I've just added in some extra columns and they calculate this. So the first one just looks at that cell and it says I want to be the same as that cell, but formatted as day of the week. Over here, I actually have a VLOOKUP looking at another set of data, which lets me know which accounting period is that particular date in. And over here I have an if statement with some nested date functions to find out what financial year that date falls into. Now, the first problem that we have here is completeness. You'll notice that I don't have one of every day here, and the reason is because there are gaps in my dates here, and I don't have any Mondays or any Tuesdays. Problem is, when I create a visual, something like a chart, it won't show me my Monday and Tuesday as being a 0. It just won't show them. So my data will jump straight from the Friday to the Saturday. And from the Sunday, it will jump to Wednesday. It won't have the Monday and Tuesday at all. The other problem we have is when we have actually what we refer to as big data. Now, this is not big data, this is bigger data. But what we have is we have the same date repeated multiple times. And in fact, this date has 3,000-ish transactions taking place on that one day. It's very inefficient for me to have a calculation here, particularly the VLOOKUP. But in all of these cases, these are calculated fields. It's very inefficient to have that calculation 3,000 times instead of just having it once. Now, if I had somewhere else a date table or a calendar table, I would only need to refer these calculations to one of each instance of a day. Now, clearly, when I have 3,000 of the same day in my data, I really don't want to do the same calculations 3,000 times. It's completely unnecessary, particularly when they involve things like VLOOKUPs. That's really, really inefficient, and it will slow the workbook down, probably to the point of collapse. So what we're going to do, we're going to build a calendar table. Now, the calendar table consists of one of every date. And then we do the analysis on each of those dates to say what day of the week, what day of the month, what month of the year, and so on. So let's go ahead and do that. First thing we'll do is we'll go to this sheet here, and I've created a cell there. This is actually a table, and the table is called TBL dates. Now, it starts off with the earliest possible date within my data range. Now, I don't actually have any data for the 1st of January 2015, but I've gone back to the start of the year in which I have data. So I have data from 2015 up until 2018. So my end date, I'm going to put in the latest possible date in 2018. Now, when I click this button here, what it's going to do is it's going to add extra rows into my table, one extra row for every date within that date range, between my start and my end date. Now, because this was already a table, it's dynamic. So my query that I may have already built, my query points to the table and however big the table is. Now, what you didn't see is when I click that button, the first thing it does is it removes any rows other than the very first one before it then adds them in. So if I change this now down to the third of the first 15 and then click the button again, it will remove all of the extra rows before it actually just puts in the new ones. Okay, actually removing the rows is what takes the time, just purely because of the way I've written the code. I could clean that up later on. Most of the time you're not going to need to be removing the rows, because what you'll do is you'll come and you'll add in a future end date as you get more data put in there. So let's go ahead and change this again. So 31st of the 12th, 18, and let's add in all those dates. You see that's really rapid adding in the dates. Now what I need to do is I need to go and have a look at my query that I've built for this. So I have two queries here. I have one query that points to my date range, and I have another one that points to a folder which has my fact data in it. I'm going to make sure I've refreshed that query there. So this is now showing 1,400 rows, which is my 4 years worth of data. Now I'm going to go into my transactions by year, and what we have in here is we actually have our fact data, and we have timestamps, and then the data itself. I have extracted out a date only component from the timestamp. You'll see why in a minute. The way of doing this is to select the column, make sure you're in add column, and then choose the date only. Now the reason I say make sure you're in add column, if you're in transform, you have a similar thing, so I can go here and say date only, but what that will do is it will transform this column into being date only, and I will have lost the time component within it. Now if the time component is irrelevant, that's fine, but almost always you might want to do some analysis by time of day as well as by day of year. So you'd keep that date time in, and then maybe add in extra columns as the time component. Okay, so that's our query, the date table query. That's TBL dates. What this is one of every single date, so these are unique values. And then I have my subsequent columns, which are calculated columns, telling me, okay, for that particular date, what financial year, or what year am I in? What financial year? What week of the year? And so on. So we have all of these calculations, but they're only done once for every date, rather than in the example we saw previously, perhaps being done 3,000 times for a specific date. I'm going to say close and load. And now if I wanted to do some analysis on it, what I could do is say, let's go into my pivot table, and I'm going to say from my table dates, I'm going to pick, let's pick financial year. And down here, let's just pick the quantity. And now this has given me my quantity, sum of quantity, with a row level filter context for my financial year. Even though my data itself didn't have financial year component within it, that's easy enough to do. Let's have a look and see what else we can do. So if I just copy this and paste it in, I'm going to say let's take out the financial year. Let's look at this by day of the week. So I'm going to go into here, I'm going to drag my day name into the rows, and now you'll see that I have my day name Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's showing me my sum of quantity of items sold on each of those days of the week. Again, without me having to have many extra calculated columns on my fact data, which may be tens of millions of rows of data, remember, and equally without me missing any of these dates. Okay. There are many things that you can do with this. So I could take this just by itself, perhaps with the dates query already built into it. So the dates query is the one that gives me those extra columns. And I could save it as a template. Now then, anytime I wanted to start a new Power Query file, I can start from that template, and then simply the first thing I'll do is set up my initial dates, my date range, and then hit add dates, and then do my get data to get the fact data and build my data model around it. That will all work fine. I'm quite happy to send this file to anybody who wants. If you do want a copy, just put your email down below and I'll send it across to you. I won't put the examples in there, I'll just put it in as I would have it as a template. So there'll be just this one sheet here and the query for getting the dates, and a couple of other things that I'll do within the Power Query window, which are sorting these columns by other columns. So I'll make sure that my month name column is sorted by my month number column. My day name column will be sorted by day of the week column. And I just do that in the Power Query window. So that's all I have for you. I do hope you found it useful. If you have, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And as always, thank you for listening.